Mm. We won't bring up the game, though.
The game.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Matt Braden here from the GPAR professional staff. Welcome to Coffee Talk. We're starting today, Tuesday, as opposed to usual Monday. So this is a little bit of an unusual week. So we'll go through a few things before we get into our featured guest today, which is NAR President Vince Malta. So this is a little bit of a different week. So we're having Coffee Talk this morning at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. So a little bit different there. Friday, we're going to have another Coffee Talk. It's election time, in case if you haven't realized that. Breaking news there, right? It's an election season. Anyway, seriously, we're going to have Dr. Terry Madonna joining us on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. If any of you are tuned into politics in our region, Dr. Madonna is one of those go-to guys for polling information, reading the tea leaves, and deciphering what he's seeing there with the election data. So from a very timely standpoint, it should be right there on the mark, but also too, it would be very interesting and fascinating to hear his positions and the things that he's seeing, considering Pennsylvania is a key state in this upcoming election. So that'll be Friday morning, 9 o'clock. Hope you guys can join us. Speaking of elections and things along those lines, Realtor Party. We have three basic tenets out of that: vote, act, and invest. So it's a good time to remind everybody that you're still able to register to vote here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The deadline for that is October 19th. That is, your application has to be in by that date. They have to have it in hand. So if you think back to some of the other coffee talks that we had David Thornburg from the Committee of 70, as well as we had City Commissioner Al Schmidt before that talking about elections in Philadelphia. If you missed either one of those chats, be sure to check out the videos that we have of both of those coffee talks that we did. They were great conversations. Again, timely, fits right in with the different things that are going on with the election. And if you haven't realized it, realtors have a big time voice in elections, local, state, and on the federal level. So it's kind of like why we're hitting on some of those points. To get to that invest point, it's important to remind everybody, we currently have a sweepstakes underway. It'll carry through until December. We are going to have a sweepstakes for RPAC investment, 8 2021 dues for 8 lucky GPAR members. So the emails have been going out. Make sure you check those emails. We'd love to see some investments, and we'd love to see you win your dues for next year. Can't beat that, right? And then with that, I think we'll shift it over to the main focus point of today's conversation, and that is Coffee Talk. President Vince, thank you very much for joining us from the West Coast. We were very happy to see the outcome of that football game. That may have been the high point of our entire season. That may have been our Super Bowl, but we will take it because you guys have taken so much from us with our Philadelphia Phillies and whatnot. So anyway, Stephanie, President Vince, here you go.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, President Vince. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Stephanie. And Matt, I didn't even realize there was a season going on. So thank you for that.
The Eagles didn't either. So you're not alone.
And I think we're still first, right? Imagine that.
I believe you.
Okay. Well, again, good morning. And we're so happy that you could join us here this morning. And I know it's an early morning, so thank you for that. So let's get started and talk a little bit about your background and familiarize some of our members with where you grew up, where you went to school, and kind of how you got into the real estate business.
Wow, they really want to hear that. Well, I'll cut to the chase. I have been in real estate my entire life. I am a third generation realtor from San Francisco, born and raised. So I'm really boring. In fact, I'll never forget when I turned 50 many years ago, I was showing a property directly across the street from a hospital. And it was my 50th birthday. In fact, I was born 9 a.m. and my appointment was 9 a.m. And I looked at the clients and I said, you know what? I was born right there 50 years ago in that building, okay? I really haven't gotten very far in life. It's so true. You look at so many of our clients and our members, they travel all over the country and whatever. I had been in one place my entire life. So, and in some ways it's good, some ways it's bad, whatever, but I feel very fortunate. San Francisco is a very special city, just like Philadelphia. And I went to school here. So I went to the University of San Francisco, went to the University of San Francisco School of Law. You know, again, my family, third generation realtor, I love going into a house on a listing presentation and say that, you know, my grandfather had this house built back in 1945, 46. And it's a wonderful thing. Real estate's always been in my blood, but I didn't always want to be in real estate. I went to law school thinking I'd become a lawyer. And that was a decision that I'm glad I didn't make, that I'm glad I went into real estate. I just saw how hard my father was working. You know, he was really, he'd go to work at 7 a.m. and sometimes he'd come home at 8 o'clock at night, and just knew real estate was not an easy business. But it was just in me. And so I became a realtor. Now I'm 43 years in the business, if you could believe it. So there you go.
That's
So,
very impressive.
so what attracted me into real estate, right? So it's in my blood. I've always loved to be a part of helping people attain the dream of home ownership and helping them get their business, whether I do small commercial in San Francisco, I do resi-mercial. So to me, that's a very satisfying thing in dealing with those very happy moments in people's lives. And they're very grateful over the years, especially if you see what San Francisco real estate's done over the last 43 years. My clients that I've sold a piece of real estate 40 years ago, they're feeling good about it. Let's just put it that way.
Cool. So we were talking a little before coffee talk, and you said you were up early this morning taking care of a water issue in one of your buildings. Have you always specialized in that area in commercial, or did you do residential when you first started?
So when I started off as residential, and then the residential income area got really complex in San Francisco very fast in 1979 with rent control. And so would find that people really didn't know what they were doing. So I kind of made that my specialty and got into residential income properties, apartment buildings. It was really simple. You virtually had a zero vacancy factor. Everything rented in San Francisco. There's just such a shortage of residential units. So it seemed like a pretty sure bet. The only constraints you had was really working with these laws and these ordinances. And then I helped clients through that, and it was a great way of getting them and doing property management and getting them on their feet. And it's worked out very well over the last 43 years. Own several buildings in San Francisco. Sometimes it's wonderful. This morning it was not, when I had a water main burst in a building and created a lot of damage, and left there about 40 minutes ago, and I'll be back there a little bit later. But that goes with the territory. That's just what it is. But I do respect all that property owners go through, which I think we'll talk a little bit about today, hopefully, in relation to the pandemic and some of the laws that have come out. You really respect what property owners are going through, especially mom and pop property owners, now that there's an eviction moratorium and they can't get rent. That's a real problem. So we're working very hard in that area.
Cool. All right, let's go right into that, because I'm curious to know about the San Francisco market and how this pandemic, we've heard on the news with a lot of cities, and how it's affected real estate, you know, shutdowns, small businesses, landlords, tenants. So what is the San Francisco market like now, and how has it impacted? How has the pandemic impacted that?
Sure. So the San Francisco market, I think, is affected like a lot of urban markets right now with shutdowns, et cetera, where we have small businesses closed, restaurants, a lot of entertainment. I mean, you can go on, people are now working out of their home. I have 3 boys, and they all work for major companies in Silicon Valley. And one is a fruit which you might know, resembles sort of like an apple. And the other one works at a company with a big G, and we do a lot of searching on it. And they're working out of their homes. And so the fortunate thing is that we have a lot of high-paying jobs that people were not let go. They were able to maintain and work in their jobs out of their home. And that's very important. But it's like a dystopia. There are people that have been greatly affected by this and that have lost their businesses as a result. A lot of people in the hospitality business, tourism, very negatively impacted. So it's not one size fits all, like a lot of urban areas in our country. A lot of people that have been living in their home in the last 6 months, or their apartment or their condo or whatever, are saying, you know what, I wish I made a better choice. And so right now they're looking at other choices. They're looking in the suburbs. They're looking in homes in San Francisco. They're looking in areas where they don't have to go through a lot of common areas, elevators, buildings that have great amenities. They're all closed, so they're not really useful to them, and dealing with their space. So San Francisco is going through a transition right now where we're, for the first time, not the first time, probably for the greatest time ever, we've had a huge vacancy factor. Right now, residential units are experiencing a 10 to 15% vacancy factor when we typically were less than 3%. So that's huge. So rents are coming down, but rents were really high in San Francisco. So, let's say I bought a building in 1988, typical one bedroom was renting for $700 a month, okay? That same unit today rents for $3,500 a month, okay? So rents have gone up 5 times. So we're gonna find that when things come back online, people are gonna probably come back into the city, and because there's just a lot of amenities there. When that happens, how it happens is still a big unknown, but it's starting to gradually happen right now as we work through a lot of issues in our city. So the housing market is driven by the fact that we have with homes, very low inventory. And I think that you could say that probably in most areas of the country. What there is not low inventory of are a lot of the condos in San Francisco. And I'm sure some of your clients are familiar with what's going on in Manhattan. Same situation. People are looking at other areas out of the suburbs. So it's a trend as people are finding the right size, the right amenities and community that they want to live in for the foreseeable future, because they don't see themselves traveling and going on cruises and everything else during this period.
So San Francisco, you're by the water. Is there a second home market anywhere in San Francisco that you see an uptick, or do they go somewhere else?
Yeah, they'll typically go to the ocean. So they'll go down to the Santa Cruz area, which is a hot market right now. They'll go up to Lake Tahoe, which is a hot market, and they'll go to Marin County, which is really great. And then you've got, of course, the suburbs, which is San Mateo County, Silicon Valley area. So there are tremendous, number of opportunities for people, and the inventory level in those areas is really, really low. In fact, prices are going up in those areas as people sort of wait things out. It's kind of interesting that people have the ability to buy a second home. Some people are looking to, look, I don't need to live in San Francisco. I don't need to have my primary home there anymore, because I'll be in the foreseeable future. I could work out of wherever. I go to Lake Tahoe and work out of there. So that's what they're doing. And I know, like, for instance, with my kids and with my clients, et cetera, again, they don't see themselves going back into their offices until sometime mid next year. It's funny. We were talking to some of the commercial brokers and what it's looking like in New York. And let's suppose you have a 50-story banking building, okay? And they're looking, how long would it take people, full capacity to go in and out of the building? Okay, 2.5 hours to get in, 2.5 hours to get out with current protocols. So it's a huge logistical problem. NAR is working with Congress right now on providing a safe harbor protections for property for businesses that reopen following state and local guidelines, okay? Well, look where these state and local guidelines get you. 2.5 hours in, 2.5 hours out. So it's going to be a little while before we work through these issues. I'm not going to say whether it's going to be a vaccine that creates that or the treatments that some public officials have been receiving that have been really promising, but it's going to be a transition. And I think that the bright spot of all of this, Stephanie, is real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about what we have been through. Now, I know that Pennsylvania was not deemed essential for a very long period of time. So I really congratulate your associations, your local and state associations working with NAR to get real estate deemed essential in virtually every locality in our country. Okay? Hasn't been easy, but able to do that. And then working through and being resilient and adaptable in getting properties shown and people through properties virtually. So real estate has had a stronger and quicker recovery than most any other sector other than Clorox wipes in the country. So you think about it. And fortunately, we represent 1/5 of the economy. So this just isn't great for realtors. This is great for our entire country. So we'll continue to lead in the recovery. And that's why we're really pushing for online notarization to occur in all 50 states, having the laws allow for that. Very important as we've realized, no one's wished this presidency on you, right, Stephanie? I mean, they probably come up to you and apologize. Oh, we're so sorry for you. Oh my God, whatever. But you know, we really see people working at their finest, and so it's been a really incredible thing. And we've seen so much happen at the advocacy level. But as this pandemic, you know, ebbs and flows and whatever, we need to make sure that we're set up so that we can continue to close transactions, get people through properties efficiently and safely, and have those respected. So I really thank all of your members that are following these very difficult protocols, but they're important, and it's going to see us through the end of the day.
So you mentioned Pennsylvania. We did have quite a time getting back online, but we are, thankfully.
Yes.
And those were some of our challenges that we had. What about in your area, in the Bay Area? What challenges do you see going forward?
Well, I think, I'm not downplaying what prices are in any part of the country, but we're dealing with a very expensive market, okay? And I think that people are making the decision to say, should I stay or should I leave? Now look, we had wildfires on top of things as well. And I'm sure that people have had a lot of things hit with the South, had hurricanes coming through, just horrific. But I have to tell you, on a personal side, and believe us, our heart and our prayers go out to those that were directly affected by the wildfires, which were many. But what you probably don't hear about is that we had the worst air quality in the world for weeks, and we couldn't even go outside. So imagine, you know, you have this pandemic, you're stuck at home, you're stuck going between your home and your work, whatever. And now you got to tell the kids, you can't even go outside. Can't ride your bike. You can't do the things that you've been used to doing over the last several months because you can't do anything else. So you couldn't even go outside. So I think a lot of people are saying, you know, do I really want to continue living here? Living here. And a lot of people are looking at other states. They're looking at Idaho. Some clients I know looked at Boise, Idaho, and they're looking to make longer term decisions. I still think, and I'm very biased, California is the greatest state in the union, and love it, and born and raised here, and will most likely die here. But it is a real, how do I say, this has been a real game changer for people in moving forward and thinking about what they want in their lives. ahead. And it's tough to struggle with living in a very expensive state. Sure, we get paid a lot, so some things are relative. But tell people in San Francisco, median home price, $1.3 million. What does that get you? 2.5 bedrooms. That's rough. That's really, really rough. That means that you probably have to have a 2-income earner family. That means that mom or dad have to, rather than stay home with the family, they have to go out and work. So there's a lot of quality of life decisions that need to be made. And I think the pandemic has really accelerated those decisions. And I think the pandemic, if there's any weakness in anything, it really magnifies it. And so it's really magnified our affordability problem. That's why a lot of people have decided to relocate outside of the area, some outside of the state. But ultimately, it will probably settle down as long as the jobs stay in California. We've got some really great jobs, as you know, in Silicon Valley and entertainment in Southern California, et cetera, in tech. The foreseeable future, that's been our savior.
So we've talked a little bit about how the pandemic has affected the San Francisco market and plus all over. How has this changed your year as the NAR president?
Well, maybe I could ask that question of you too. I mean, really, you come in with 4 objectives and all of a sudden they're not as relevant. I mean, they're still relevant, but the health and safety of your members, come first and foremost. So we did what's called a pivot, and very proud as to how we pivoted. I just have to say that my last trip was Alaska in March 5th of this year. And I remember telling my wife, gosh, I think we had been home in January and February. We were home maybe 3 days out of both of those months. And I said to her, I would just love to spend a little more time at home. Well, be careful what you wish for, right? Because I've been home since March the 5th. I haven't gone anywhere, right? Other than, in the area here and working. And that's been it between my offices and the real estate. So it was a pivot, and the leadership team created a policy and stepped into action that there's no travel until we get a better handle as to what's going on. And we had a budget and finance meeting come up in March where we had hundreds of people that we had to get together. They normally come into Chicago and handle that. And then we had staring at us the mid-year meetings, our advocacy meetings in Washington, D.C. in May. And the first inclination is you got to cancel. You got to, let them work through the situation. Some officials were saying, we'll be back online by Easter. Let's just put everything off till then. Well, that's not what we did. What we did was we did what our members do. They adapted. So we adapted to a virtual platform. It was not easy, but it was done. And the end result is you look at our mid-year meetings. We normally have 9,500 people, go to Washington, D.C., march onto the Capitol. We had 28,000 people register for our virtual meetings in D.C. So we had triple the engagement. So if there's a silver lining to any of this, our members are more engaged than they've ever been. And here we are today, at a coffee meeting in Philadelphia. That's something that was unheard of in 2019, right? Right. So these are great opportunities to get great speakers, to engage your members at a much higher level, and maybe transition them to in-person meetings eventually when we go back online. But again, the engagement level is high. So we pivoted. We pivoted to this online platform. We pivoted in providing what's called Right Tools Right Now. We said that if there's ever a time our members needed their association, this was the time. So we just took everything out of the toolbox and provided to our members free or a substantial discount. And that includes a members telehealth program where you can contact a physician 24/7 from your phone, talk to them, view them, show them your symptoms so that you didn't have to go into a doctor's office or a hospital, put yourselves in harm's way, and get prescriptions online, over the phone, whatever. And we said, look, we'll provide that to our members for free. And we did for several months. And we still have it available for members at half cost. So that's available. I think it works out to like $15 a month. It's a great program if your insurance company doesn't already have it, your insurance program. So that's how we pivoted. And we provided and met with our state association executives every week for a while. I mean, now it's every other week, something we never did. And the meetings were so generated so much great information. It's like, why haven't we been doing this before? So really upping the communications has been incredible. I think that it's something that eventually would have happened, but again, COVID just accelerates all of it to happen. So
I totally agree. Totally agree. I think member engagement is one thing all associations, local, state, national, on that level, we always try to find different ways. And we knew this was coming, and the silver lining with COVID, it just kind of put it right there. So we have seen numbers.
Very true. Very true. And I have to say, it's very easy for me to say as president of NAR, but I've never had a greater appreciation for what our local associations, our state and the National Association provides. I'm more acutely aware of it, especially when we went after relief, for independent contractors, et cetera. What our local associations doing and help us working through all these, the protocols and the restrictions, and what's coming down from the state through the distribution of a lot of these programs. I've never had a greater appreciation for the three-way agreement that we belong to a state, local, national association. So I think members are engaged, yes, and they're more acutely aware that there's a lot there for them that it's being provided. So that's another silver lining, I hope.
Yeah. Well, you did a lot of lobbying on behalf of our members in DC. Can you share with us, you talked a little bit about the unemployment, maybe share some insights on that and some of the other.
Yeah, so unemployment compensation for independent contractors, which is us, unheard of. It's never happened before. And so we were able to secure that. And that was, I have to tell you, I receive a lot of thank yous for that. And I'm not, we have a great advocacy team in Washington, D.C. that really works for that. Small business loans for properties through the PPP and EIDL programs. Really painful getting off and running because the program was so massive and they never did things at that scale. So it was a work in progress as we got through, and they immediately ran out of money. And so we had to work with them to get more money for the programs, et cetera, through other relief programs. And look at property owners. If you were in real estate back in 2009, 10, 11, where people were losing their home right and left, during a pandemic, it was especially important that people be able to stay in their homes. And so working out forbearance with the federal government on government-backed loans, and then working with lenders to make sure that they don't have a race to the bottom and they provide decent forbearance agreements for owners. And we're still working through the issues. I mean, I feel for, as we talked about earlier, I feel for mom and pop property owners. Right now, the president's administration came out through the CDC with an eviction moratorium. Okay, and that's wonderful. So people will have, there's no evictions till the end of this year. But what does that mean for the property owner that has no rental money coming in? And that is really undermines and could really hurt our real estate industry and sector if that starts spiraling. So we're really pushing the administration to find funds to make sure that property owners are kept afloat, so that there's rental assistance. Because in the end of the day, you could have an eviction moratorium till the end of this year, but rental money is going to be owed. So there's going to be a day of reckoning. And so we're just merely kicking the can down the road. So we're really pushing for rental assistance so that property owners can get that money so that they can keep their properties. We're working on forbearance measures for property owners as well. if they have a government-backed loan. And initially that was 90 days, we got that extended. So there's a lot out there in the way of protections. But the scary thing about all this is that a lot of this was designed for maybe 2, 3, 4 months. We're going to need more relief as we move forward. And I have to tell you, I'm a pretty conservative guy fiscally. And so all this rubs me the wrong way. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what I think. It's what our economy needs to keep it going. It's what our industry needs to keep it going. So we're really pushing for further relief as we go. And it's been tied up with the election. And my God, I don't know about you. You're a swing state, aren't you? Stephanie, you're a swing state, aren't you? Where
Yeah.
you're being bombarded.
We don't want to, no.
Oh my God. The ads that you guys must be seeing right now is just amazing. So I can't wait till this election's over. And I don't know when that's going to happen because quite frankly, it's freezing up a lot of what we need to have done as well. You know, you wonder, and I don't want to be cynical. I mean, I'm going to state the obvious. Do you think this being an election year has affected everything we've gone through? In some ways it's accelerated and helped. In some ways it's slowed down and paralyzed. So, you know, I just can't wait till that dynamic is over. And I think 2021 will be a year that we hope to get, you know, back on the normal track. It may start happening, you know, the second quarter or whatever, but getting back on a more normal track. But, you know, fortunately, we did have those relief efforts, and those have fortunately, you know, kept our industry going. Interest rates at, my God, around 3%. Unemployment, or I should say employment numbers are starting to go back up as the economy is recovering. But we need to make sure, and I think Lawrence Yun, our chief economist, has said that we will have a continued recovery so long as those two things continue to exist. So unfortunately or fortunately, we need more relief as we move forward. And so we're really pushing in DC for that. What else? I talked about opening up businesses. We need to provide protections for businesses that open up as long as they follow protocols. I talked about online notarization. And we're working on first-time buyer programs. So there's a bill in the Senate right now that I think it's the American Dream Act, and works sort of like a savings account that they could put aside for education. It can be used for down payment, and I think that's very important as well. So we're moving along those. So right now, Congress is interested in just a few things, and it's all COVID related. Very fortunately, I think that affects your state as well as most states of the country, is that we were able to get the flood insurance program extended for an additional year. Now, mind you, we're working for long-term reauthorization of the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, but we were very fortunate to get 1 full year. We have been getting sometimes 3-month extensions, et cetera, and we don't want that to be effective. So we're getting it over to, I believe, September 30th next year, which was really welcome news, because if you don't have flood insurance, you can't get a loan for some properties. So very important. And we also got, for good news for commercial members, the transportation bill and funding has gone parallel with that as well, was passed. So that's good news. So we've been very busy in Washington, D.C. So the question I'm asked is, what's NAR's position on the presidential race? Do we take a position on any race for the presidency? And the answer to that is no. We don't support any presidential candidate. What we do is we make sure that our issues are provided to both the Republican and Democratic parties so that it's included in their platform, the importance of real estate in driving our economy forward. So that's important. And so we know that there's a lot of different ways that a lot of sound bites, the way the presidential candidates want to handle taxes and real estate and all of that. But we'll work with either administration in making sure that real estate is a favored investment moving forward, and that really emphasizes the importance of homeownership. That's important to us. And that issue transcends both sides. of the political aisle.
So that is on the national level. So RPAC, what is the importance of RPAC in all of this, the elections, the advocacy? How important on a national level and even on a
I will
local or
say,
state?
yeah, I mean, I think that right now we've shown how important RPAC is. All of our investing all of these years has paid off in dividends as to what happened this year. Now, I know it wasn't easy for Pennsylvania, but having real estate deemed essential was critical. You know, and when it wasn't, it was just like a basic misunderstanding of how we can transact business and how important it is to what we do. I mean, we were finding shelter and homes for people during the pandemic, for people that were healthcare workers that needed a place to live outside of their familial settings so that they wouldn't expose their family. I mean, what we did was absolutely crucial, not just to keep the economy going, but to keep people safe. And so eventually Pennsylvania got it, and we're really appreciative of that. But virtually every local and state community realized that early on and was able to keep things going. So by June, it really kicked in. So the importance of RPAC, I think right there was so very important. And, you know, this election is a key election. And so you have a lot of local and state races that are in play that we're going to be participating in. It's again, we don't support just Democrats or Republicans. It's how they resonate and understand and will work with issues that impact us the most as an industry. We don't talk about, you know, the CARE Act. We don't talk about guns. We don't talk, it's real estate. That is our litmus test, okay? So you may have very personal feelings one way or the other about certain candidates, and this is what we get. You know, we get their issue on this other issue is really negative, but understand what RPAC is focused on, okay? And Stephanie, you as president this year, and me as president, we've had to put our personal, feelings aside and say what is in the best interest of our members, and that's what the Realtor Party is. It's acting in the best interest of our members in representing them for our industry. So, yeah, as Matthew said earlier, and Matthew, thank you for doing that. The message is the same: vote, act, and invest. We had 74% of our members vote in the last presidential election in 2016. 74%. Why isn't that 100%? I mean, my goodness. So please, we have on the Realtor Party site, there's some tools there to get out the vote. So, you know, please do. It's of importance. And I think your date, you said, Matthew, is October the 19th. If you're not registered, get out there and register and vote, please. Very, very important. So there's a lot on the line for our industry this year.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Matt.
So hopefully this is coming through because I think my internet connection got a little bit funny here. Just a couple of things. I just want to drop this in. President Vince, you and NAR have been phenomenal to our association. When I go ahead and I just quickly was jotting down the different folks that have connected with us during the pandemic to come in for various presentations and talks. It goes from Shannon McGann, Brian Green, Fred Underwood, Charlie Oppler. We've had Dr. Yoon. He's going to come back to us next week, so he's going to be in next Friday.
Oh, fantastic.
The support has been absolutely phenomenal. And we cannot thank you guys enough for your leadership and your engagement with us. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. We have really made some lemonade out of the lemons that we have been given during 2020. But speaking of lemonade and things that are good, I would like to go ahead and introduce Councilman Alan Dom for a moment. He asked to jump on here before he has to go to an appointment at 11 o'clock. Councilman Dom is a Realtor member. He's a past president of our association 4 times. Just introduced a really great bill last week that we've partnered with his office and some other community folks to try to put an end to predatory home purchasing. So at this moment, I'd like to introduce Councilman Alan Dom.
Matt, thank you very much. And thank you, Stephanie, for organizing this. This is a great event. And President Malta, thank you for being here. virtually, but thank you for being here. And I just want to say to NAR, to you, and all the members of the National Association of Realtors, you guys were super supportive to me in this last election, coming up with tremendous dollars from RPAC. And if anyone doesn't know the value of RPAC as clearly as I do, I mean, it was just amazing how supportive you were. And so was our state association, the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and so was this association through Stephanie, Matt, Summer, and all the directors and members. GPAR came through in a big way, and I'm so thankful for that. I just wanted to thank you personally and NAR and all of our members. But also wanted to share with you something that Matt really was behind. This is really a GPAR effort. GPAR went to CLS, Community Legal Services, and partnered in this legislation that I just introduced last Thursday on these, basically it's a wholesaler's bill. We have a lot of people in our city that post signs on telephone poles and so forth that say, you know, we buy your homes for cash, cash for homes. And this is a way to try to license that and control it. And it was GPAR that basically was behind this whole bill and put it together and worked with CLS, which is kind of amazing that Community Legal Services and GPAR are partnering on this. And we all should feel very proud of this because it was really amazing. I can't tell you enough, President Malta, that this association, GPAR, that I'm a member of, is just phenomenally supportive of me and the realtor cause, and they do a great job. And I can't speak highly enough of the leadership of GPAR. So thanks for being here, President Malta, and thank you again for your support. Thank you.
Could I just say before you leave, Alan, I got to say this is a dream that I have for San Francisco, that we can get a realtor on city council. I mean, someone that can understand our issues. So thank you for stepping forward and serving. And that is so, so very important. So thank you for that.
Well, you know, it's my pleasure. And I'll give you a little hint about maybe how you can get somebody. I actually think that real estate sales and politics are the same, because everyone on this call loves helping people. That's our biggest thrill, when we find the right home for a buyer. And in government, it's the same thing. You're helping people. It's the same benefit you receive. So I think the transition's easy, and I think more people on this call should run for political office. I can tell you that our skill sets are desperately needed in government, desperately. And so thank you, and thank you, President. And if I can help in any way with your counsel there, please use me as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. So, all right, so we heard about Alan's path from realtor to now city council. Let's talk about your leadership. So now what happens after 2020 for President Vince Malta?
So I'm an immediate past president, but most importantly, I want to step into the other phase of leadership, which I think is very important in a volunteer organization, and that's mentorship. I don't want to serve in and take up space and roles, but I want to transition and help people get engaged with the association, which is a really difficult thing for local associations, especially to get members involved in the association and volunteer. So I really want to seek out people that want to serve our association. It's important that we replace ourselves. So mentorship, I think, is so important. And there's one question. I was looking in the chat section, and I got to deal with this in San Francisco because I'm sure we get a lot of news over this. It's like, how are you dealing with the homeless situation of the squatters in my listings, occupying vacant listings, you know? And the homeless situation in San Francisco has been a challenge. And like a lot of communities in our country, that there's no silver bullet in dealing with the homeless issue. And a lot of people throw money at these issues, and they don't look at breaking it homeless down to what it is, because it's so many different things. It could be mental illness, it could be drug addiction, it could be poverty, it could be so many different things that need to be addressed. And in San Francisco, I'll be quite critical. We're not addressing it properly, and that needs to be improved upon. And I think, again, I'm sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record. When something was broke, COVID magnifies it, and it's been magnified again. So I hope you do. I hope that it sounds like you have a very sensible person on your city council. You work towards sensible solutions that are compassionate and yet focus on problems rather than deal with the politics of it. And that's the real sad thing. Yeah, it has been greatly exaggerated in San Francisco, but I would say it is a problem, especially around our Civic Center area and other areas. But the other problem is that as we've seen, and I don't want to make a political statement, we've had a lot of protests in San Francisco as well, and we've seen different communities react to them differently. You know, NAR has come out very strongly on how it feels regarding the social and racial justice movements. We don't believe in violence, of course, but we do believe in human dignity. We believe in respect of life. And we believe, most importantly, that fair housing is our lane. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to be leaders in fair housing. And so we're really upping our educational training across the country in that area, providing resources for that, collaborating with other groups. And it begins with each and every one of us, fair housing. And so I encourage people to go online at nar.realtors, look at our bias video. And it's 45 minutes long. I got to tell you, I got a lot out of it. It was so well worth it. And so again, it begins with us. And look for a lot of other things rolling out with Charlie Oppler, who will be our president in 2021. It's going to continue with that. Again, we need to be leaders in the area of fair housing and community inclusion.
Yeah, we had Bill Debman on a few weeks ago, I think, and
Oh,
it
wonderful.
was great. Yeah, we had him
Wonderful.
on, and thanks to NAR opening up that avenue for us. So yeah, it was really good. And we have some follow-up too with the training that NAR has. They're doing a ACT. Is it ACT?
Uh-huh. Accountability, culture change, and
Yes.
training. That's been our program.
Yes.
You know, we rolled this out in January of this year. So, you know, it's not just a response as to what happened in June. You know, it's something. Brian Green, who I heard he spoke with you. He came from HUD last year, and he was a great acquisition, and he's been really great at NAR, working on a lot of different programs. We started our Fair Housing Committee last year as well. So again, we really want to work very diligently towards this. It's something that we're going to provide a lot of resources. We're even at our strategic thinking committee do a pivot and look at diversity in our industry and how we can create win-win scenarios for our members and for our clients we serve.
How can Realtor get involved and support those efforts? Some of these new initiatives that you're creating.
So go online, take a look at them. A lot of them are state and local driven, so that you can take some of what's involved that's available there and then incorporate them in your training sessions. We had grants that'll continue on through probably next year. It'll resume. But we had a racial justice grant where, let's say there was damage done by some of the protests, that you could apply for a grant and do some repairs, and gather your members, your community to work around and having these discussions regarding that. So apply for things online. We have grants available, which would be great. And then again, if you're really passionate about this, you can get a at home with diversity certification. Which is another thing it's great to help you serve a more diverse clientele. So there are a lot of resources there. But this has been a great time in which to really reflect and say, what could I do to retrain for the future? And here's one area that we definitely can.
Yeah, I think that. Go ahead.
We managed to apply for that grant, and we did receive it. And we have GPAR is partnering up with Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, in which there was some damage done in her district. So we're doing some work along a commercial corridor there. So we are very grateful for that opportunity to, one, have the solicitation come out, but then two, to actually be able to win one of those grants. Because we did, you know, there was a lot of stuff happened in Philadelphia. And we know that any help is grateful. We're grateful
Sure.
for it. So thank you very much.
That's
for
wonderful. That just really is great to hear. Your association so actively involved with all these programs. We work so well when we work together, and I'm so happy that you're able to utilize that. And I think that it'll hopefully create conversations. And the most important thing that we need to do as an association is to create a safe space for people to have these conversations so we can listen. I think one of the statements that one of the speakers made in relation to this area was that we're strangers walking amongst each other. We really don't know each other that well, especially when it comes down to fair housing and racial issues. And members have come up to me and spoken with me and are grateful that we're really having serious conversations. So again, create that safe space so that people can have conversations. Let's not attack each other through this. Let's have an open and thoughtful discussion regarding ideas and how we can be better in working together.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the right tools right now, they have been great throughout this pandemic. And you mentioned some of the designations, the at home with diversity. I did that, and I did the ePro. The ePro was free. And so that's a big bonus. I mean, but the at home with diversity, that certification, that program was great, because it just it was pleasant to participate in. Everything that we hear on the news, I don't even listen to the news anymore. So it was nice to, like you said, we're strangers amongst one another.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just get to know and understand a culture and appreciate the cultures, which I think we all do, if we can shine light on that, I think things could be a little more positive.
Sure.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we're almost at the end of the hour, and this is when we take questions from the chat, and Matt has been monitoring them. And Vince, if you looked at any, and if there's anything you want to jump right out and answer.
Well, they're asking a question about the class action lawsuit that the MLSs really challenging our MLSs in a sense. And basically, the big word was we motioned for summary judgment, which sometimes it took a year for the motion to summary judgment to come in. We did not prevail on a motion to summary judgment. Very rare in a class action lawsuit that it's granted. So we're continuing to go on. We'll probably go on through discovery on that. But again, we believe we're right on the merits on that. We're going to prevail. It's just going to take a very long time and probably a lot of money to do that. But we're going to fight that fight, absolutely. There was a question regarding San Francisco and rent control. Unfortunately, in San Francisco, rent control is here to stay, even though we have a 10 to 15% vacancy factor, which I just find is really funny. But it seems that what we need to really guard against are short-term solutions to fix long-term problems. And you don't fix, and I think if you want to, I think San Francisco could be really a case study about how it was, to protect tenants and provide lower rents, et cetera. It's done the exact opposite in San Francisco. So again, short-term solution did not build more housing, which we needed in San Francisco. So I think that our concern during COVID is people are looking for short-term solutions with COVID under the guise that it's helping people through COVID, and we've got to make sure that you got to look at the long-term effects of some of these things. So when you have eviction moratoriums and when you shut businesses down, what are the long-term effects of some of these things? So, and they do it in the name of COVID, and it may have been their agenda all along. So we're going to be very vigilant on that. And I know that your association is on the local level, obviously, because you're so well working at all levels. So, with that, if you have any other questions, please feel free.
So, President Vince, I have a question for you. You're the president of an association with 1.4 million members. This morning, you're running out at 3 o'clock in the morning to deal with a property issue. So you have a lot of balls in the air in the midst of a pandemic in which there's a whole lot of stressors in place and whatnot. And the horizon doesn't necessarily look like it's super promising either with the pandemic. How do you keep it all kind of focused and moving forward and not getting bogged down? What do you personally do to keep yourself sane?
So I'm very fortunate. I have a very wonderful wife, a strong family that really anchor things for me. So I'm really fortunate in that regard. But I'm going to say this, that I don't think that I do anything more than any of our members are doing. And some of them have even greater challenges than I have. So I feel very fortunate. And if there's anything that we can take from 2020, I hope it's this. It's that we've demonstrated no matter what is thrown at us, we can do it. We can adapt. We're resilient. So whatever 2021 has in store for us, we can handle any of those challenges. So that's what keeps me going, is that we handled a very fluid situation. And I'll tell you, there's some points, the decision may not have been right, but it's not important about being right. What's important is getting it right and making sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of your members. And so at the end of the day, that's what keeps me going, okay? It's all of you and what you're doing. I've never been more proud to be a Realtor. And so if I could say that I've seen people work at their finest moment, working through challenges, both personal and business, all at the same time, and helping their community, that's what keeps me going, because all of you are doing that. So.
All right.
Thank you.
I think we're pretty good, Stephanie.
All right. All right. Well, President Vince, it's been a pleasure having coffee with you this morning. And
Pleasure.
I won't keep you because I know you have a water issue to take care of.
It'll be there for me. Don't worry. It'll be there. It
They
ain't gonna
never
go
go
away.
Well, thank you for your service this year, and it's been an exciting year, I think, for both of us as presidents. I think it would have been very boring if we didn't have all of this going on. So,
well, I have to say thank you for all you're doing. I learned a lot from you this morning, and you're really doing so much for your members. I'm so very grateful for that. And I know your members are. So thank you for that. Thank you for the incredible job you're doing this year, Stephanie and team. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
the team. It's the team behind me. So yeah, they're awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you come back soon.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Being in person someday.
Bye-bye.
Yes, definitely.
Triple play. All
Hey,
right.
we did see you in Harrisburg earlier this year, right?
We did.
Yes,
We did.
I enjoyed that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think I just came up and I said, hey, I got to introduce you to Councilman Dom. Boom. And we just did it on the fly.
One of my last trips. You think about it, you know?
Yeah, that is true.
Oh, geez. All right. We'll always have Harrisburg.
There we go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks again.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.